can't really minister to a person if you can't understand how they can find themselves in that place. Do you see what I'm saying? If you're busy thinking that about another person, I think we've all experienced that. You ever felt that where you thought, why don't they just stop doing that? You see how we can't identify or relate to their struggle? You that saying, walk a day in my shoes? So you can understand why I might find myself in this struggle. Walk a day with my heart. Walk a day in the trauma and the pain that's come against me in my life. And understand why I might believe this lie. Instead of sitting in a place where you think, why don't you just stop doing that? Why don't you just stop believing that? You see, what's happened when I come to understand that God understands how this could happen to a person, I begin to understand how a person can find themselves in bondage to sin. I begin to understand how a person can find themselves in bondage to the works of the flesh. And then I can enter into their darkness with them, and I can begin to minister to the lie in their heart. With no judgment, no condemnation, but love. Everybody will agree that love's what impacts the heart, not judgment and condemnation, right? Yet we sit in a place where we want to judge and condemn people who are stuck in a path of sinning. Imagine that. You know, when I went to my grandfather's funeral, I was not angry with him because he passed away. I was not caught off guard that he was in a coffin. I understood how it could be that he was laying in the coffin. I understood how it could be that he passed away. I wasn't busy being angry with him and dissatisfied with him as my grandpa because he now found himself laying in that coffin and having passed away from this mortal body. Because I understood how that could happen. I understood how he could find himself in that place. Should your friend be suffering at the hands of some disease or illness, you will not be angry with them because they're suffering at the hands of some disease or illness. You will not say to yourself, why don't they just be cured? Why don't they just stop suffering? But you will be filled with compassion towards them because you're able to understand how it is they find themselves in this place where they're suffering. It will make sense to you that they're suffering because you'll see that this illness or disease is bringing suffering to them. You won't be angry with them. You won't think, why are they suffering? Can't they just get over it? Guys, we need to start looking at sin more as like a disease that found a way to be born in people. Just like other diseases in the world. I just talked about the visible things in this world declaring the invisible things of God. You know, the disease, any disease in the world is just a manifestation and a testimony of what sin does. And so if we don't feel that way about a person who's in bondage to a disease, we'd never feel that way about a person who is suffering at the hands of cancer. We'd never be angry with them. We'd never think, why don't they just get healed? Why don't they just get cured? Why don't they just stop suffering? Man, I'm sick of hearing and suffering. I'm sick of always seeing them in bondage to this disease. We would never think about that in terms of a person that has a disease. But that's how we've been taught to think about people who are struggling with sin. That's how we've been taught that God thinks about people who are struggling with sin. But it isn't that way, man.